Hey friends, Irene Lyon here. Welcome to this video, to this YouTube channel, and to this world of healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. I wanted to talk to you today about breath, breathing, and just how important it is for us to understand what our breath is and how we can use it to our advantage and not as a mechanism to ignore and suppress and kind of surf over important somatic experiences that might pop up in our system. Now, quick little sort of history note. I've talked about this in the past. I wrote an article that I'll pop below, all on why taking a deep breath, one of those, is counterproductive when we're trying to relax. And there's some sort of the side notes to this that I wanted to dive into today. And the first thing to understand about our breath, I'm going to be more sciencey for a moment, is that our breathing, so if you're watching this, you're breathing. That is a given. I'm breathing, you're breathing. It happens spontaneously. It is a necessary biological need for humans. It's governed by our autonomic nervous system. It's also governed by the pressure differential between our lungs and the atmosphere. And so eventually, as I talk, I have to breathe, and it comes in and it comes out, hopefully in a nice, harmonious, flowing way. I'm able to regulate my breath. Even as I talk, I can take breaths in without having to keep breathing to regulate my breath. It's just occurring. Now, of course, this is what occurs in a system that is regulated. And what we know is that when we have dysregulation in our autonomic nervous system, and I've talked about this in many other videos, and I'll post some of those below, but quick kind of background is that when we have too much of our survival impulses, so our fight, flight, and our freeze revving at the same time, our autonomic nervous system, it has trouble regulating its needs. And it isn't just respiration, it's also hormonal, immune-wise, gut-related, even how we relate to others in the environment. So this health of our autonomic nervous system is key. And when we have more resiliency, more regulation in our system, breath becomes something that we don't really have to think about. I'm going to talk today about what occurs when we might think about it more, maybe more than we have to, and some things that we can pay attention to so that breath can help us and not throw us off the path of healing. A favorite quote of mine is from the pioneer, the neuroplastician pioneer, Dr. Moshé Feldenkrais, and he would say something along the lines of, and I paraphrase, do nothing that resembles breathing. And he kind of means that in the way I've just mentioned, that breath is something that just occurs. We need oxygen and we need to let go of CO2 into the atmosphere so that we don't build up waste in our system. And so if we were to start doing jumping jacks or going up a mountain, our breath would start to increase, our respiration rate would start to increase because A, we need more oxygen to go to our muscles and our tissues to make energy for the activity, and we need to exhale more and more so that we don't build up the lactic acid in our muscles. And so if you ever exercise or you've been in those situations where all of a sudden they say, sucking wind, it's hard to just breathe through the nose because you need a bigger passage to get oxygen in and CO2 out. So Dr. Feldenkrais would often say, do nothing that resembles breathing. Just breathe given the environment, the circumstance, and what is going on in the current situation of your physiology. So with that sort of preamble set, where we get into trouble that I've seen, it comes down to two words. And one word is control, and one word is contain. In the past, historically, and even now, a lot of our, instruction when we feel an anxiety or we feel an overwhelming sensation and we're feeling a little frantic, people will say, just take a deep breath, that kind of thing. The trouble with this, there's a few. One is that when we increase our inhale, it actually spikes the heart rate, it increases the blood pressure. It's just how the physiology works. So when we take a big inhale, there's a mechanism that actually puts the heart rate up. It's really the exhale that brings the system down. So let's just say someone is feeling a little panicked, a little scared, they're feeling an overwhelming sensation. While there might be a tendency to take a deep breath and to control what is being felt, if anything, see if you can, or the people that you're around, can you focus on the exhale? Focus on we could call it the letting go, the release, the deactivation part of our blood pressure, of our respiration. So that's number one, is it doesn't always work well when we're having some form of intensity to just take a deep breath. So one is, this example is that it actually spikes our heart rate. The second, if you are really serious and interested in working with emotion, sensation, trapped survival stress, really honoring your biological impulses, something I talk a lot about, just this ability to feel what's there and not try to mold it and shift it and squish it back inside. But if we're really interested in being 100% raw and honest and authentic with what's happening in our system, we don't want to bring in breath as a means to control and suppress and depress these big somatic experiences. We actually want to feel them, be with them, let them move through, see what they have to say to us. And in order to do that with our breath, or if I should say, when we bring in our breath and we try to breathe over it, we can sometimes negate those experiences, and we can actually miss them. It's like we skip over an important part, and our body is trying to talk to us, it's trying to tell us something. So the way in which we use our breath to control what we're feeling, in my opinion, in the work I do, not the best thing, because we want this stuff to move through. Now, there's one caveat to that. If we're new to this work and we've never felt a sensation in our body that is a little, as we would call it, maybe fear-based or a negative emotion. I say that with air quotes very deliberately, but we've been taught in our culture that certain emotions and sensations are bad, certain ones are good. So let's say we're brand new to this work and we don't know how to feel and sense and be with this intense, heart rate, or this dread in our belly, or the mind that's just looping. We really don't know what to do with it because we're new at this work. Sometimes we might want to use our breath as a control mechanism to keep us connected in some way, to keep us a little bit more, we could say calm. And again, I say calm with air quotes because that is not really going to calm us. It's just going to keep things under control. And that intensity isn't going to magically disappear. It's going to recirculate into the system, and it'll come back up for another day, or it'll come up in the form of a headache or a gut problem, or, for example, not being able to sleep at night. This is a big one for a lot of people. So again, if we're really wanting to work with this at a deep level, we got to understand that by controlling and suppressing these somatic experiences, we're really not doing ourselves any favors, and we're not doing the world any favors, because our toxicity and what we hold inside impacts our environment. I also wrote about this in another article, so I'll post that below too. So the second word, I just talked about control. So how controlling our breath and using it as a way to negate what we're feeling ain't what we want. It's not what we want. What we want to do is we want to feel our breath and use it and sense it as a way to contain our experience and be with our experience without disconnecting from the experience or going into more of a spiraling loop, whether it's a mind-based loop, whether it's a psychosomatic-based loop where we make our symptoms worse because we're kind of just getting really frantic with it. So again, rewind. We can use our breath as a way to help contain. And what I mean by that is, so I'll just use one example. Let's say you're feeling a little bit of jitteriness in the chest or a little tightness in the throat. Can there be a way of feeling that, naming it for what it is, and then some of my basics: connect to the ground, see where you are, know where you are. Of course, granted, where you are is safe. And then listen to the breath, feel the breath. And maybe you do become a little more conscious with feeling it and noticing its jaggedness or its shortness or its shallowness or its desire to want to gulp a lot, but you just notice it and you be with it and you track how the breath is. There's nothing wrong with maybe taking a little bit more of an inhale that is subtle and small, but very conscious. Doing it knowing I'm doing this because I want to sense what's happening. Just the other day, for example, I hit my knee on our coffee table. It's got a very sharp edge, and it was really painful. And because of the work that I do, that I teach my students and I talk to you about here in these videos, I go through the practices of pausing, feeling. It stung really bad. There's a really nasty bruise on there right now. But I waited, I felt my breath and how it changed. There was no doubt an immune reaction that went to that spot. It's, and it got red, it got sore. But if we can, when something like that occurs, some kind of stressor, some kind of shock, some kind of bad thing that's occurring, or old stuff that's coming up, like trapped survival energy, that's what that anxiety is, that panic. Can we acknowledge it, be with it, notice our breath, contain the experience, but not try to control it and keep it into a little specific spot? Can we allow it to be felt? And maybe we do a few extra exhales, but we're not doing it in an attempt to shut the response down, to shut the feeling down, to shut the experience down. Sadly, for most of us, for many of us, this is not what we've been taught. We've been taught the opposite, to control it. How many times our kids, they fall, they do the equivalent of hitting their knee or stubbing their toe or scraping their knees when they fall off their bikes. And before they even know it, they're swept up onto their feet, tears and all, not knowing what the heck is going on, and told to stop crying, to get back on their bike and keep going. That is a perfect example, a simple example, but a perfect one of how our disability to really feel what's happening and let the system take the regulation back, it's not allowing that to occur. Therefore, now as adults, now as we watch this, as you watch this and going forward, how can you feel the experiences that are occurring in your system? Notice what might be triggering you, notice what might be surfacing that's old. And rather than be, the kiddo that's swept off its feet and tries to go forward and is more chaotic and more disconnected and still got the tears, but they're being stuffed inside. And rather than that, you can see there's like a frenzy in that. Can you go the other route? Can you take a different road? Can you shift your perspective on what these experiences are? How your breath can be there as an ally, not as something that is hindering your experience, but is helping your experience. And I think that just by knowing this and practicing this, it puts a little bit more nuance into our nervous systems. It makes us a little less black and white. It makes us feel and pause and listen and be curious with what's going on, rather trying to slap a Band-Aid on something and just shove it, over for another day. Because trust me, it will come back in a different way. And it's important to know that a lot of times old traumas, old stressors, old survival impulses that we didn't work with, that we weren't with, for example, like that little bike accident where we scraped our knee and weren't allowed to really feel, these old things will stay with us and they will keep revisiting us, almost like someone at the door knocking saying, hello, is it time yet? Is it time for you to finally listen to that painful thing, that survival energy, that scariness, that fear, that anger, that grief, whatever it might be, it'll keep coming back. And I think we have a really important opportunity right now in the year 2020 to take these experiences, to take these somatic sensations and feelings and all the stuff and really be with it, but in a way that isn't controlling it, but containing it, honoring it, respecting it, feeling it, playing with the energy, staying connected to the world under us, and really honoring the here and now, what the body wants to tell us. I know, I think a lot of you know, a lot of my mentors know, when we stop listening to the body, it stops talking to us in the way that we need it to talk to us. When we start to listen to it and really honor it, it starts to talk to us in a nicer way, and it takes practice. So to rewind, I started with this topic of breath and how there's sometimes confusion about what we should do with our breathing. To go back to, again, Dr. Feldenkrais's classic saying, do nothing that resembles breathing. That's a very strong way of saying, try not to change the breath. Just let it happen, let it be there. If you do want to pay attention to it, bring it into your awareness as a way of containing your experience rather than trying to control the experience. And if you are feeling a little panicky and you're not sure what to do, rather than focus on the inhale, first focus on connecting to the ground under you, knowing where you are, maybe even saying that out loud, because that'll help you breathe, right? Talking helps us breathe, especially slowing our talk down, and then focusing on the exhale. All right. That is it for today. I hope this video on breathing and breath and how to feel the differences between control and containing it has been helpful. We will see you in the next video, and take very good care.